Man, I do love Arcane. I can't wait for the next season. What do you mean it's over? It's not over. There's still so much more. What do you mean? What do you mean? Arcane absolutely took the world by storm when it first came out, and I don't think it's crazy to say that Season 1 was an actual masterpiece. And if for any strange reason you disagree, then we can't be friends! The good parts of Season 1 heavily outweigh any bad part you may think the season had. Well, actually, I had a problem with— Your face is the only problem. Part of what made Arcane so popular was the fact that no one saw this banger coming. Maybe I lived under a rock or something, but I don't even remember seeing a trailer for Season 1, like, at all. A TV show about League of Legends? Who would ever watch this? I'm pretty sure the only people that had this in their radar before it released were League of Legends fans. And, I don't think anyone really wants to be associated with them. Ew! The second it came out, though, it became a worldwide phenomenon. Everyone absolutely loved the show. Ratings skyrocketed. Popularity went through the roof. Everyone wanted more of Arcane. And in 2024, we got the second and final season of Arcane. And, man, do I have thoughts on it. I have, very strong feelings on— Get her away from me! A good hook isn't always necessary, but it can definitely help in getting the audience's attention. Some examples of shows with good hooks are Attack on Titan. In the very first episode, we get to see, from the eyes of a child, giant monsters running around destroying everything and everyone. In Breaking Bad, we get to see a naked white man. Cinema! So how does Arcane hook us? Well, we're introduced to our main characters, Vi and Powder, who just became orphans because of war. Season 1 of Arcane establishes how grounded the story's gonna be. Despite all the gods and demons and gromps within League of Legends, this was a small-scale story contained within just 2 cities. Hopefully that doesn't change or anything. I really hope some crazy stuff doesn't just randomly shift the tone of the story. Before anything else, let's get the elephant out of the room. One of the main reasons the show got so popular is because Arcane looks really good. I've never seen a show with an art style like this. Everything looks like a painting. While doing research for this video, I learned that the writers actually gave the animation team a lot of free reign to do things how they wanted. Riot, the company behind League of Legends and Arcane, worked with Studio Fortiche before with music videos like Get Jinxed, which is an absolute banger, by the way. That's probably why at some moments, Arcane just decides to give us what feels like a music video in the middle of an episode. Yeah, sure, it can feel really random and disruptive, but you know what? Let him cook, bro. These are fire. In my opinion, though, the highlight of Arcane Season 1 just had to be the characters. Jinx alone raised my standards for how a crazy character should be done. The first act of Arcane had me devastated for this girl, man. Powder and her friends were just trying to help the people of the Undercity, but Powder was just a kid. She couldn't really do anything useful. Then she finally gets this little blue orb that makes her bombs work, but then it gets everyone killed. Like, what? Why? Why would the show do this to her? She was just trying to help, man. It's not her fault she's trash. She's 11. I saw this comment somewhere that basically summed up what made the characters of the show feel so unique. The characters don't fail because of their vices, they fail because of their virtues. Even Silco, the antagonist of the first act, falls to this description. He would have given anything to make that deal with Jace to turn Zon into its own independent nation, but he couldn't do it because it would mean turning in Jinx. He wouldn't do it because he's a man who values loyalty as a virtue, and because Jinx was someone he learned to love. Ironic considering he thought that love was a weakness of Vander's.
Is there anything so undoing as a daughter?
So yeah, Season 1 did pretty much everything amazingly. The art style, the animation, the voice acting, the music, the action, the choreography. Oh my god, the choreography! The sound effects, the plot, the characters, the themes, every aspect of this show was perfect. But then, Season 2 came. When it was announced that Season 2 was going to be the final season of Arcane, I was like the only person to be happy about this. As much as I loved Season 1 of Arcane, I didn't want the show to overstay its welcome. But because of the announcement that this was going to be the final season, I was so happy, because I assumed that this was the way things were supposed to be. The writers had a plan for the story, and they knew exactly how they wanted to end it. And while I still believe they ended it the way they wanted to, after finishing season 2, I do think maybe a couple more episodes were needed. The main problem of season 2 was definitely time. I know a lot of people think that the first 3 episodes of season 2 already had problems, but I honestly don't think so. People claim that we should have gotten more time with the crime bosses of the Undercity, and the fact that those subplots were thrown away so quickly is a bad thing. But I strongly disagree with this. If we got an arc with these other guys, it probably would have been the weakest part of season 2. All the good parts of Arcane come from characters that we already have or will build an emotional attachment with. Do you really think you would have wanted to see the backstory of this guy? I don't even remember his name, man. No, I think he and the other people were as relevant as they needed to be so that we could get back to the characters that we want to get back to and their storylines. The problems, I think, immediately came after episode 3. I honestly believe that the first act of the season was basically perfect. It continued the story left off by the first season really well, and it all ended with the amazing confrontation between Vi, Jinx, Caitlyn, and Savika. The entire fight was emotional, painful, and desperate. You could see how tense the situation was through the eyes of the characters alone. And even... okay, wait a second. Jinx, why did you jump down to Vi's level? This is something I need to talk about real quick. Why did she leave the high ground and give Vi the advantage of getting closer? She had such a good position. Anyway, I'm getting off track. As the fight is going on, we see that their Hextech weapons aren't working right, and they're interfering with the fight. We see that it's because something is going wrong with the Hex core, something that's being dealt with by Jace, Heimerdinger, and Echo. This, I think, is a good representation of the issue with Season 2. While the Vi and Jinx stuff is really good and emotional and intimate, the subplots are kind of interfering with the flow of the main story. Season 1 did a really good job of making sure every character arc and plot point were at least relevant and connected to each other. But Season 2 doesn't do that very well. There's so many different things happening at once, and even though they kind of connect at the end, they also really don't. There are 3 plot points I want to focus on: the Jinx, Vi, and Vander stuff, the Jace, Victor, and Echo stuff, and the Mel stuff. The main issues I have with these is that while they're all good stories individually, they don't blend together at all. Remember when the Hextech was interfering with the fight between Vi and Jinx? Well, they don't question it afterwards, because, well, it's not relevant to their story. They don't do anything about it, which I find a little weird. You mean to tell me that the brainiac that is Jinx, the girl who spent so much time studying and making gadgets since she was a kid, didn't care that the Hextech wasn't working? When she went home, she didn't try to investigate the reason? Hey, Jinx, remember the last time your Hextech invention didn't work out the way you wanted it to? Yeah. It killed everyone. That's one of the main reasons you have your trauma. I think you should care about the Hextech stuff a little more. Oh, well, I guess she won't, because that's not her storyline. That's Jace's storyline. Oh, and going to Jace and friends, while they're out here discovering time travel and different dimensions, Vi and Jinx, the main characters of the show, are nowhere to be found. Everyone's contained within their own boats. For example, the Mel stuff. What the fuck is the Black Rose? When Mel got kidnapped by these magical witches, I had to pause the episode because when was this ever introduced in the first season? Let me tell you. It wasn't. Now, yes, later on it's revealed to be an organization that's very much connected to Mbessa and Mel's backstories, which is great for them and their characters, but it has no relation to the Jinx or Jace storylines. It doesn't have any relation at the moment, and it doesn't have any relation to them later on. These dudes probably don't even know what the Black Rose is. Also, speaking of Jinx and Jace, these two characters have never met. They know of each other, but they somehow have never crossed paths. It's not like that important, I know, but I think that's a really big indicator for just how disjointed the season was. Another indicator was when Jinx met Victor. I was like, okay, they're gonna find a way to incorporate Vi and Jinx into the larger narrative with the hex core and magical power stuff. But no, they don't. The main reason they talk to Victor is solely for the sake of Vander, meaning they only talk so that Jinx and Vi could progress their family story, not at all so they could connect to the large narrative. And it gets wilder, cause Jace shows up at that same location, meaning all our characters are kind of together, and yet Jace attacks Victor, which leads to Vander attacking everyone and Isha dying. This would be a very good way of incorporating these two stories together now, right? Well, that doesn't happen. Jinx and Vi, after the whole event, still don't really know, nor I guess care, about the crazy fight going on between Jace and the godlike being that is now Victor. Jinx goes to jail and is sad about Isha, while Vi yells at Caitlyn about Jinx being in jail, and again, still no mention of Jace, Victor, nor the Hex Tech, because they have no reason to care. It's not their storyline. And amidst all this, Mel finally finishes her Black Rose subplot and goes to see Jace. And guess what? You'll never believe it. Jace doesn't learn about the Black Rose stuff because it's not relevant to his story. He's basically like, wow, you went through a lot. So anyway, Victor thinks he's Jesus now. And yeah, Mel and Jace fight one of Victor's robot monsters together, but Mel doesn't really learn anything in depth about what Jace is going through. She just knows bad stuff is happening, but she's still only really focused on her mom. Okay, let's talk about Mbessa actually, because she was single-handedly trying to fix the season on her own. It's like she knew how messy— oh my god, I have pins and needles. It's like she knew how messy all these different plot points were and tried to bring them all together. She teamed up with Victor so Jace would be involved in her war against Mel, and she also brought Vander so Vi and Jinx have some emotional attachment to this war they're joining in. Mbessa, you're the GOAT, but unfortunately, it wasn't enough. Because the ending of this entire show has me conflicted. Oh my god, the pins and needles are getting worse. Oh my god. Oh. But before we get to that, I need to rant about Maddie. Can I just say, I was like the only person to believe in Maddie. I straight up believe that she was like the one innocent I straight up believe that she was like the one innocent soul in this entire show. Everyone's got a dark side in Arcane. But not Maddie. You know why I believed in Maddie? Because I had to. Gingers have been getting no love in recent media. The last ginger representative was like Ron Weasley, and he was last relevant in the prehistoric times of the 2000s. The most popular ginger character of all time is probably Jimmy Olsen, Superman's best friend, but these were the most recent adaptations of him. Where is the ginger? Oh, and can I just say, the voice actress of Maddie, top tier troll. As the show was airing, people were making comments like, I don't know guys, I don't trust Maddie. And the voice actress for Maddie would reply to these comments and be like, aw, why don't you guys trust her? She's so sweet. She would make people feel bad for doubting Maddie. She knew what she was doing. She wanted that reveal to hurt. My main point is, I feel bad for gingers, man. They get no love. So, the ending of Arcane kind of annoyed me. The problem was still there. Everyone just kind of stuck to their own lane. No one diverted. Mel focused on her mom and the Black Rose shit again. Jace and Victor fought over the magical hullabaloo. And Jinx and Vi dealt with the alpha wolf Vander. Look man, I get it. These are the storylines that have been built up from the start of the season. It would feel weird if all these characters just started jumping into each other's storylines amidst all this chaos. But doing things the way they did makes it feel like I'm watching the ending to 3 different shows instead of just the one. The fact that this was the first time Jinx and Jace have made eye contact annoys me a lot. It's not necessarily bad that things ended this way, but things could have been way better. Oh, actually, there was one person that felt like he was connecting everyone in the ending. The GOAT himself, Echo. He's not called the boy savior for no reason. He came into the battlefield with Jinx, then saved the world from Victor. Despite having like the least amount of screen time, he really had the best moments. Oh, don't worry, I'll get to that. I do gotta say though, the Victor magic stuff is probably the biggest issue that everyone dislikes about the second season. I think this TikTok sums it up pretty well.
There was a very hungry, genetically modified caterpillar. 7 nuclear missiles.
The shift from a battle between 2 cities to fighting what is basically a god happened a little too quickly. The drama between Piltover and the Undercity was on the rise, especially with the introduction of the Jinxers. Things were getting really interesting, but then because of Victor shoving his glorious evolution up people's brain holes, those plot points had to be stopped real quick. Like, look at this one Jinxer. Why was she given so much attention? She even had that one moment with Jinx that probably meant a lot to her. It seemed like this girl was gonna have some level of importance, but no, she just dies. Then there's also Savika. Oh, poor Savika. Sure, she joined the fight at the end, but did you guys notice something? All the way until the end where she joins the council, she has no lines. The point is, things were built up only to be dropped for the sake of another storyline. It happened way too quick. So let me tell you guys about another story that did something similar to what Arcane did, but they did it better. Final Fantasy VII. This game is properly known as one of the most influential This game is popularly known as one of the most influential games of all time, and it actually has a very similar plot structure to Arcane. I wouldn't be surprised if Arcane was heavily inspired by Final Fantasy VII. Both stories start with main characters that come from an underprivileged city, and these main characters try to get back at the rich government that overlooks them. Eventually, however, the characters are introduced to magical elements of the world, and the stakes go beyond just the relationship between two cities. And eventually, the final adversary the characters face is a single entity that obtains godlike powers. These are very similar, right? The thing is though, Final Fantasy VII does this way better, and the main reason is because they have the time. We're able to slowly transition from the grounded world of Midgar to the open and massive world of Gaia. Things don't feel like they shifted out of nowhere because everything constantly feels connected. Before the main characters are able to have a satisfying conclusion against the rich and powerful, Sephiroth, the guy who later becomes the godlike being at the end of the story, kills him, and the main cast then has to chase after him. Well, isn't this the same problem as Arcane? The first grounded storyline was stopped in favor of the new magical big bad guy? What makes this different? The difference is that the Midgar storyline wasn't actually stopped, it just added another layer to the story. Sephiroth was actually a victim of the system created by the rich and powerful, so he decided to do something about it, which is definitely similar to Victor, who was a victim of circumstance that decided to use his intelligence to change the world as he saw fit, but Sephiroth's relationship with Shinra and the main characters connects the world together, while Victor's storyline becomes severed from the other characters' storylines like Jinx and Vi. Everything in Final Fantasy VII was built from the start. Cloud and Sephiroth both have a history with Shinra, so it makes sense why they both go after them in the beginning, only to cross paths in the way. So tell me, what meaningful relationship does Echo have with Victor? Absolutely nothing. As cool as this fight with Victor was, it's not as impactful as it could be, because Echo and Victor don't even really know each other. Then you add this with the fact that no one other than Jace really understands Victor and his plans, which makes Victor's takeover of the world feel really lackluster. Final Fantasy VII is a big example of the fact that you can increase the stakes of an initially grounded and small-scale story to a crazy planetary scale one. I also just don't like the fact that Vi and Jinx, the real main characters of the show, have nothing to do with the greater story. The show started with them, and it's been about them since the beginning. It should have ended with them. I'm not saying to sideline Jace and Victor's story, because their story has clearly been built up since the beginning too. I just wish Vi and Jinx actually had some relevance in the show they star in. Despite my thoughts though, I still loved Arcane. While Season 1 was a masterpiece, this season definitely had its flaws. But by no means is it a bad season. Even though things weren't as interconnected as I would have wanted, each individual storyline was still pretty good. Even though the shift from the grounded tale of two cities to a global scale war in the ending happened faster than I would have liked, I can't deny that this was clearly something they were building up to since the beginning. I just have to believe that if the show had maybe 2 or 3 more episodes, then everything would have lined up much better. They just needed to take their time. Episode 7 was a perfect episode because they took their time. Echo, that should be me, man. That should be me. Actually, I have no doubts that things would have been better if they had more time. The creators confirmed that there was at least a whole hour of extra footage of just scenes with Jinx and Echo. A whole hour? That's literally a whole episode's worth. What? Can you imagine what else they have but couldn't add? I could only dream to see that, man. Arcane didn't end up being the perfect show I hoped it would be, but it's still one of the best I've ever seen. Despite the flaws, this is still one of the most passion-filled projects I've ever had the pleasure of consuming. The art and masterclass of storytelling on display in Arcane is something I don't know if I'll ever experience again. I really will miss the show and all the characters that I grew so unbelievably attached to. I know there are going to be future shows similar to Arcane, but this one will forever have a special place in my heart. In a perfect world, we'd get the director's cut of Arcane, where all that unreleased footage can finally be out for us to see. I'll never stop asking for it, so you guys should ask for it too. Maybe it'll actually happen and we get to see it. Until then though, I guess I'll just have to rewatch Arcane over and over again. And you won't see me complaining. No, seriously guys, I need you guys to storm Riot Games and ask for a director's cut because I need to see that extra hour of footage between Echo and Jinx. I need it! I need it!